You can drink and do drugs and watch porn. If you still do the that's all that matters. I want to do the formula and then live my life how I want to live.
So what advice do you have for people that are wasting time on things like porn, social media, or even just a friend group that is going nowhere fast?
It's my belief that if you can control every one of the variables externally to an organism, you can control its behavior. So one of my favorite quotes from B.F. Skinner, who was a behavior psychologist from way back in the day, was the old saying is, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. He said, well, if you bleed it out enough and you starve it and you leave it in the sun and you put the water right in front of its mouth, he's like, I can veritably guarantee that I can make it drink. And so if you were to think about yourself as that horse, then it's like, okay, well, what is the equivalent of the bloodletting, the dehydration, the starving that you can put yourself into to get the behavior you want? So starving has a negative connotation, but we can also starve out the negative things in your life. Like you can starve the alcohol, you can starve the porn, you can starve the friends. And I think the easiest way to do that is to get out of the environment you're in. Because like, I'm sure you heard about I think this was in Atomic Habits. In Vietnam, I think it was like 10% of troops or something were taking heroin when they were over there in the 70s. And they thought there was going to be this massive problem when they came back to the States. But when they came back to the States, almost no one continued the heroin habit. And so going from Vietnam, where you're doing heroin, to the US, where you're not taking heroin, had a 90% success rate, whereas the inverse is true of recovery centers in the United States today. People go there and 90% of them relapse when they go back home. And so the difference is that people were doing heroin in a different environment, and then they changed their environment, and then they never went back to the environment that they did heroin in. And so it's like, if you have these behaviors that have cues from the people, the surroundings, the colleagues, family, whatever, I think even if you can't afford to move out of the state, like almost anybody can move across town, even 30 minutes away, to just make it a little bit more inconvenient for your drug dealer, for your bars that you know, for the friends to say, you know, hey, we're doing fantasy, whatever, on Friday. And it's like, I can't make it, right? You just make it inconvenient to do all the things that you don't want to do and make it more convenient to do the things that you do, and you'll do more of them.
When you think about constructing a mindset that is going to allow somebody to be successful, like when I think about your blueprints, if you had to prep somebody to be ready to deal with that blueprint, what are some of the either core beliefs or habits that you would get them in the routine of doing so that they could actually deploy the things that you teach?
I think some of the things that I'll say might sound repetitive to some folks, but I'm a big believer in a lot of the Stoic virtues. And a lot of that just comes down to having your opinion of yourself be all that is required. And so it's like living for the future version of yourself and letting that person be your ultimate judge and no one else's voice. And I think that obviously it takes practice. We're social creatures. We learn how to behave from other people and their judgment of our behavior when we're kids. And then we have to unlearn it as we're adults, because we find out that the people who are giving us feedback actually have no idea what they're doing. So, but like, it's super ingrained in us. And I think it's a long process, but like, how do I prepare someone for that? It's like everything is removing the limitation, right? It's like, I want to get to here. And so getting there is usually straightforward. It's the obstacles that are all the things that people put in their own way. So it's like, because the obstacle might have a different name for every person. And then trying to pull apart, like, why is this thing, like, why am I putting weight on this thing? Because you had a strong drive when you were growing up, right? And you wanted to get into film school. You had this thing, like, I don't know what that snap point is. For me, I just, like, my fear of disapproval from, you know, my dad was my big driver. And so that was the thing that could get me to quit whatever it was, you know what I mean? To do the one thing that mattered more. And I think that's, at least for me, I don't know how to find that for someone.
You said something in one of the interviews that you were doing leading up to your book launch that really hit me. And that was you rewrote the book something like 19 times. And when you got to a point one time where you're like, look, they're going to be able to get this. And the guy that you were working with said, look, there's a guy in Iran and he has one goat. And he's going to sleep with a copy of this book under his pillow. Do it for him. And that somehow sparked you. So my question is, given your response to that, given everybody needs that thing, are there some people that are beyond reach?
No. I don't think, I mean, unless you have like mental disability, you know what I mean? Like, I think that barring biology, right? No, I don't think so. I think I'm a big behavioral person, which is like anything can be trained. Even like, man, he has such a great personality. It's like, what is personality?
Look at your bank account. Now look at mine. Now look at your bank account. Now back to mine. Sadly, it doesn't look like mine. But it could if you joined Skool. Come with me. Where are you? You're at a party, but not just any party, your party. And you get to decide who's invited. You can come in, my dear. You cannot. Give me your money. And because it's your party, it can be free or it can be paid. It's up to you. And you're talking about whatever you want to talk about because it's your party. Learning and having fun. Fun! But don't believe me. Look at these numbers. This is the real leaderboard from last month. And sure, I could talk about Bill, who's making $62,000 a month, helping people bookkeep better. Or Jamie, helping women invest, making $41,000 a month. But what about the average school community? Well, the average paid community makes $1,360 per month. How about them apples? What's that? The ticket to the thing that you've always wanted to go to. My headquarters here in Vegas. Become one of the top 10 communities and you can fly out. Look, over there. The ticket is now a torch. No, it's an engagement ring to the business of your dreams so that you can marry it forever. Because 1 out of 2 businesses on Skool create money online. Anything is possible on Skool. Click the link to start for free.